President Trump debating Vice President Biden in Cleveland, in Ohio, battleground state. What an absolute hot mess. I just want to take sort of a 30,000 foot view approach of this, because we can get into all the little nooks and crannies of what was said, what wasn't said, and in the sort of the analysis of the back and forth. But I want to just take like a meta moment here. And I think the American people last night lost. I thought it was disgusting. I thought it was not even an entertaining night. It was painful, and it was an embarrassment for this country. What we saw last night was an embarrassment. President Trump likes to tell us that he's the greatest president in American history. Vice President Biden last night said, "You are the worst president in American history." What we saw on display last night, though, was an embarrassment of America for the rest of the world. We should be ashamed of ourselves. And the rest of the world is looking upon us and sort of rolling their eyes and with their heads bowed. They're not even laughing at us so much as putting their heads down saying, "This is America?" I'm sure many of you feel that way. Let me know in the chat right now if you're having the same reaction that I had. It was cringeworthy. I mean, gone are the days when we had at least a sophisticated debate about the issues. Instead, last night, it was, a shouting match. And let me tell you a little about something about television, because I worked in it for 20 years. And I would have to interview, and have one senator on one side of a debate and another senator on the other side of a debate, and I'd have to be the moderator in between. And the worst type of television is when you can't understand what someone is saying. When people are talking over each other the entire time. That's the worst type of television. And that's exactly what we saw last night. So instead of anything coming out of, President Trump interrupting Biden repeatedly, it was just a cacophony of annoyance for people at home watching on a television audience. They're watching a giant baby in diapers as our president of the United States for 90 minutes basically tweeting. That's like what he was doing on stage. It was like watching him tweet for 90 minutes. "No, you didn't do that. No. And then Biden, for his matter, couldn't really get a word in edgewise. Couldn't lay out really sophisticated ideas for what he wanted to accomplish with the country. I was disheartened from a progressive point of view to not see any real deep discussions on the environment. If you're a progressive, or if you're someone from the left and you were hoping to tune in to see Vice President Biden talk about a Green New Deal or big movements on climate change in this country, you didn't get much of it. And you certainly didn't feel reassured that he beat Bernie Sanders. Like, if you were hoping that you were going to see some of Bernie Sanders' agenda, some on climate change, some sort of universal health care, no, you didn't see much of that last night. Frankly, folks, at the 30,000 foot level, I wouldn't even be surprised if last night's debate was the last debate that we have. I saw a bunch of people this morning in the chat saying, "I hope they get better before the next debate." I hope we don't have another debate. I hope we don't even have another debate. It was a waste of time. I think we learned some things last night. We learned how petulant our president is. We learned that Chris Wallace, God bless him. Chris Wallace trying, I don't know, at least like he tried to keep this show, together. I don't know what he was doing. Overall, Wallace asked some generally good questions, but he didn't ask any follow-up questions. And he was especially weak at getting Biden to talk about topics that Biden has ducked during the campaign. I thought Biden was just about as classy as he could have been, given, having this giant baby in diapers next to you, acting like literally a bully in school who just likes to hear himself talk. Conservatives this morning have come out. I love Blue Phoenix. Thank you for your super chat. Says it was like watching two old guys from the Muppets. Yeah, that's exactly right. It was. What are their names? What are their names from the Muppets? I can't remember. Anybody in the chat can come up with their names. I off the top of my head can't remember it. Very funny. I'd rather watch Grover. Yeah, you. I'd rather watch you eat that little stuffed animal for 90 minutes. I mean, who would rather watch my dog? Who would rather watch Grover eat a stuffed animal for 90 minutes? That would probably be far more entertaining. Wouldn't you say? I know Wolf Blitzer last night saying this might be the last debate we see. I'm saying I hope it's the last debate we see. I'm going to even go more editorializing on it than that. There were a few effective moments last night, but really I think Trump's plan was a total failure. So here was Trump's plan last night. Trump's plan was, I'm going to go into tonight's debate and I'm going to basically tweet for 90 minutes, but instead of tweeting, I'm going to use my mouth and just hurl insults the whole time. Non sequiturs and insults the whole time. That's what I'm going to do. And until finally at one point, Joe Biden just had it and told him, come on, man. I was waiting for this last night. I was waiting for this.
Come on, man.
But instead we got, shut up, man.
Supreme Court Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your...
So we had a lot of different things. Trump had no strategy last night, and he went in there just trying to throw Biden off his game. And it didn't work. Conservative pundits think that it was a disaster. He had no strategy. All he had was tactics, which was just to try to undermine Biden every time he talked. Instead of this looking effective, he came off looking like a bully. Boorish was a word. That's a good word of the day, boorish. He was boorish. He looked like he was just like coarse and caustic. Yet the bulk of the flames, the blame here falls on Trump for last night. He had a plan, which was just to yell at Biden the whole time, and it didn't work. It fell apart. And there's nothing worse than on television, people talking over each other where you can't hear anyone. It's frustrating to try to see that. There were effective few moments last night. There were a few. So let's talk about those few effective moments. Last night, when President Trump went after Joe Biden on Hunter Biden, Joe Biden was trying to make an emphatic point about his late son, Beau, sadly, serving in the military, when Trump then went after him on Hunter Biden and how Hunter Biden made millions of dollars in China, Ukraine, and Russia once his father became vice president. You know, this idea of crony capitalism, which, first of all, let's talk about the hypocrisy there for a second. Really? Really? That's really rich coming from Trump? Okay. Yeah, no one in his family has profited off of his presidency or the Trump organization or their name. Come on. Give me a break. So, but anyway, the only thing we don't know is whether or not Joe Biden approved of what Hunter Biden did or what he knew at the time. And Biden, for his part, said it's not true. He says it's not true. It's just not true. And there was no follow-up to that. But it actually is true about Hunter Biden. We know it's true, but there was no follow-up. So we had one little effective moment from President Trump on that. I think Chris Wallace failed in his ability to question and do follow-up questions. For instance, here's a follow-up question he should have asked. He could have asked Biden, who, for example, he's given before on whether or not he should support expanding the Supreme Court. Biden then repeating an answer he has given before said he wasn't going to answer it. Then he rambled on with Trump insisting that he should, and yet Wallace let Biden just get away with it. He didn't answer the question. We didn't get any more answers on whether or not we would see a New Deal, a Green New Deal. From the get-go, the president was determined just to try to rattle Joe Biden with being a smart, persistent interrupter. He rarely let him get a word in edgewise. He rarely let him say like 2 consecutive sentences last night. But once in a while he said something that was kind of smart, but most of the time it just made him look like a bully. And it's kind of interesting, actually, because last night Frank Luntz, he's a famous pollster, Frank Luntz, who I've interviewed many, many times on my show. Frank Luntz was holding a focus group last night, and he had a number of people in this focus group who were undecided voters. And what he wanted to know from these undecided voters was, hey, did tonight's debate do anything to persuade you one way or the other? And it actually came out pretty terribly for the people who are watching the debate. In fact, many of them said that they were not going to vote at all anymore. Listen to Frank Luntz sum up his debate focus group last night.
I'm going to do this properly. It was described by my focus group last night as a S show, and rhymes with hit. And it was like Chris Wallace was the toilet paper trying to clean up the mess. I have never had my phone blow up. I've never had a session blow up where the participants were disappointed on both sides, where everyone was embarrassed and everyone was upset about what had happened. You've got a screenshot of that right there, and I hope that you can play one segment from it. It's had over 1 million hits, and it only has been available to people for 6 hours. It's the most watched video I've ever done, and it's powerful because, number one, they felt like they didn't get the policy they were looking for. Number two, they felt like the candidates behaved as though they didn't deserve to be president. Number three, they didn't talk about economic issues except for that one clip. We had trouble bringing a clip to you this morning from it. It was so bad. And number four, it actually makes them less likely to vote for any candidate. I would have said to you, yeah, that's what happened. I would have said to you that we were going to have the biggest turnout ever. What happened last night actually encouraged people not to vote.
Wow. So what happened last night encouraged people to not vote. In fact, one of the people who was in that little screenshot there tweeted later and said, hey, I was in Frank Luntz's focus group last night, and the woman in the upper right-hand corner during the focus group, the virtual focus group, said that she thought President Trump looked like a crackhead and un-American. And she was undecided. And she said, I'm not voting for this guy. She said she was going to vote for Biden as a result of it. But look, I can't imagine who is undecided at this point. I mean, polar opposites in this country right now. Polar opposites. In many respects, it's polar opposites. But when you look at these two parties, and it's to me, it's almost like talking about one party again. It's like one big party. There were, of course, some other big moments last night. And some of the moments that stuck out to me were, well, of course, the viral moment when President Trump kept interrupting Joe Biden and where he told him to just shut up, man. So that was this moment.
Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You want to put a lot
is
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list?
Will you shut up, man? One thing I felt was really effective for Biden last night was him able to look directly into the camera and talk to the American people. That was an effective strategy. He was basically like, hey, I'm ignoring this clown over here. By the way, did you hear what circus workers said? Because everyone Biden called him a clown. Circus workers came out and said that last night's debate was even an insult to circus workers. It was so bad. Good for them. But anyway, Biden was able to directly talk to the camera, I thought, from realizing that there's only 30 people in the room, millions more at home. This was a far more effective strategy for Biden than President Trump off to the side going like this, like the whole time. Joe, yeah. Here was another big moment last night. I thought this was perhaps the scariest moment. I thought this, and if you stayed awake till the end, God bless you, you probably saw this moment. But it was at the end of the debate, within the last few minutes of the debate, and it had all to do about racism. And President Trump was specifically asked because, as you know, the FBI, the CIA have now come forward to say that that what they see as the biggest terror threat to the American people is here at home, and it comes from white supremacist groups on the right. It comes from your intelligence agencies in the United States. So, Chris Wallace asked President Trump this question about, will you denounce white supremacy? Which, come on, do you need more of a home run? Right? Yes, I denounce white supremacy. I denounce racism. I denounce violence of any kind in this country. How difficult is that to do? Turns out, it's pretty difficult if you're President Trump.
Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do
specifically
that, but
do it?
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists
Who
and
would
right
you like me to condemn?
white
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and
Stand back and stand by. Stand back and stand by is what he told them. Well, they loved that. So this white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, they were excited about that. And they took to social media last night to say, thank you, Mr. President. He told us we're ready. We're ready. In fact, I'll even pull up some of their messaging last night. The Proud Boys on their secure messaging platform Telegram last night said, stand back, stand by. They turned it into a logo right after the debate. They put it on a t-shirt that they're now selling. Stand back and stand by. Joe Biggs, who is the organizer of the Proud Boys, the white supremacist group, said President Trump told the Proud Boys to stand by because someone needs to deal with Antifa. That's what they took it to mean. Trump basically said, go F them. He said, this makes me so happy. So the Proud Boys, the white supremacist group, are like, yes, Mr. Trump, thank you. Stand by. Stand back, stand by, everyone. So that was our presidential debate last night. Our next one is with Kamala Harris. It's the vice presidential debate with Mike Pence and Kamala Harris. That one, I imagine, will be far more substantive, probably less crazy. But I honestly believe, I can't see them having another debate after this. I mean, this was an absolute shame for the American people to watch this unfold. We didn't, get into any deep discussions about climate change. President Trump was asked about climate change. He said, I love clean water. I want clean air, clean water. And, businesses are doing great. That's what he said. Businesses are doing great. Businesses are happy. Yeah, when you roll back environmental regulations, it's going to make them happy. And meanwhile, we have people's yard water sources being polluted all across the country because of fracking. Just go into upstate Pennsylvania. Just go and ask the people in Pennsylvania who live near fracking sites how they feel about their water when they can't drink it anymore because it has so much methane in it. This is well documented. You don't need me to tell you. No real discussions about it last night. Both these politicians will be dead in a few years, so it comes down to young people to have to stand and look to to their future. They don't care. They care that big businesses' pockets are being lined. I don't think we had much of substance of anything last night. How many of you are undecided at this point this morning? How many of you still can't make up your mind as to who you're going to vote for in the next election? That was the presidential debate last night. Grover, what do you think, man? Just sad, right?
Supreme Court Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your
I was like, did I just hear that? He just told him to shut up. All gloves are off. The thing is, people, if you're a Trump supporter, you thought this was great, right? If you're a Trump supporter, you thought, oh, he's sticking it to the man, right? You're sitting there laughing with your Trump buddies, laughing because he's just, he's just turning the screws, right? Because Trump supporters love when that happens. Love to try to stick it to the man, the conventions. He's going to make fun of Chris Wallace. Who's going to do that? No one does that. Going to make fun of Joe Biden. If you're the American people and you tuned in to see something of substance last night, we lost. We sorely lost last night. A real shame. But you know what? Hey, we have a community here of great viewers who join us every morning on this show. So thank you so much for supporting this show. We've got a lot more to get to on the show now that we've got the debate behind us. Let me ask you this, show of hands right now. Do you want to see another debate between Vice President Biden and President Trump? Do you want to see them discuss foreign policy? That will be one of the debates. Do you want to see them talk about climate change? Would you like to see them talk about tax returns? Would you like to see them talk about any of that stuff? Something of real substance. Let me know. I don't really care to. If I have to suffer through another 90 minutes of this garbage, no thanks. But thank you for smashing that like button and subscribing to our channel. How many of you received your morning newsletter this morning? I saw we had about 200 of you that signed up overnight. If you're new to the show, welcome. We do this show every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And you have a morning newsletter that we also send out. It's totally free. You can read what we think are some of the most important news business stories of the morning right to your inbox first thing in the morning. So go ahead and subscribe.